Hello, and welcome to The Thin Blue Mind. Each week we will be looking at current policing issues and topics within the UK. Our regular panel consists of Steve Bradshaw, who is a TV and theatre actor, Richard Horton, author, and me, Dave Thomas, broadcaster. What we all have in common is over 80 years of combined police service. Now retired, we will be providing opinion and insights from the unique position of having been there and done it. Steve spent the majority of his service on firearms before being promoted to inspector, where he was a force incident manager. Richard was a career detective before going back into uniform as a response sergeant. Myself, I spent the majority of my service on the roads policing unit before going into CID and child protection. You may not agree with everything we say, but we will make you think. The Thin Blue Mind with Bradshaw, Horton and Thomas. Policing insights and opinion. Well, hello, and welcome to this week's episode of The Thin Blue Mind. Now, recently we've been delving into some pretty dark topics, and I'm going to use a word that every police officer in the country will be cringing now. It's been fairly quiet. Can I say that word?
Oh, the Q word, stop it.
It's been fairly quiet this week for police news. So what we thought we'd do would have a bit of a fireside chat and think of a few funny stories that perhaps we're either aware of personally or fall into that category of police folklore where nobody really knows whether they're true or not, but we all hope that they are. Names will be changed to protect the guilty and sometimes the innocent as well.
When I was the ARV sergeant, we had a conference, a Conservative Party conference at Blackpool, and it was the Winter Gardens was the venue, but the hotel for the Conservative Party was the Imperial. Now, if anybody knows Blackpool, the Imperial is right on the front at Blackpool, and conference season is autumn time, and the howling storms and winds of Blackpool can be quite severe at times. And because it was the Imperial and because the Prime Minister was staying there, it had to have obviously the appropriate level of security. So there was an armed guard as well as lots and lots of yellow jackets securing the place. I had the luxury of being the sergeant, being on kind of, quote, roving patrol. So I had a nice warm police car.
Easy life.
The armed guards at the front of the Imperial were right on the front. Don't get me wrong, the yellow jackets there as well, the response officers were. So I'll go down occasionally and relieve them of the points, let them go and have a brew and stuff, and just swap roles so they could actually be within spitting distance of a car heater. And we were on the front of the Imperial. Now, as anyone who's been to a conference will know, that there's lots of fencing, there's lots of gates and security checkpoints that guide you through the way, and anybody will know that if you ain't got your pass, you're not getting in.
A bit like Squire's nightclub, isn't it?
Yeah, well, really? Thursday night at Squire's.
Oh, sticky carpet experience, yes indeed.
And you'd always get some Tory boy who, do you not know who I am, type of thing, but he ain't got a pass, fine, because if the Chief Constable didn't have a pass, he ain't getting in, don't care who you are. But what they did, they had like a security lodge where they'd go and get the pass redone or whatever. There's a party going on one night and people are coming in and out. And I'm on the point with an officer. And out from all this fencing and stuff comes Nick Robinson, BBC correspondent, who was a very nice, engaging chap. And he was talking to Tony Hadley, the singer. You're thinking, well, that's a bit of an unusual pairing. They've obviously had a pleasant night, shall we say, and had a couple of drinks. And they come out and they pass us. They're very nice. Hello, officers. Thanks very much, officers, that you get. And off they trot towards Blackpool. 20 minutes later, they're coming back. People all over the place, a little bit confused, a little bit of a queue for the security lodge, and they didn't need to be in that queue and stuff like that, and all the rest of it. So I thought they were quite nice to us, so I'll go and get them. Bit of a blustery night for them. They get these gentlemen back into the hotel. So beckons them over, and it's probably, the punchline's probably not worth the lead up to this, to be honest.
Oh, now he tells us.
Beckons him forward, and he obviously catches our eye, recognises us. So Tony Hadley and Nick Robinson's behind him, like, this way, Mr. Hadley. Through the barricades.
Tish.
You've got to be a certain age to know that one, really, haven't you? So he turns to us and he says, he turns to us and he goes, yeah, thanks very much, officers. Shakes my hand. And Nick Robinson was behind, probably didn't hear. He was like going, what's going on here? And just trooping on through the gate. So yeah. On the conference theme, when I was really, really early in service, On the plans, there was so many doors on the front. So I was assigned to a door with a few others. So you rotate 2 on, what was it, 2 on, 1 off. One of the doors had been bricked up. But it was like, well, it's bricked up. This is your door, Steve. Well, it's bricked up. Yeah, but it's on the plans. The system says, this internal process we've developed says that there's a door there. But there isn't. It's bricked up. Imagine how demoralising it is. Not only if you were standing on a door for 12 hours, where people may or may not be passing through, but you're standing on a bricked up door that no one could even pass through and having to guard that in the depths of a Lancashire autumn.
My favourite is also Blackpool Conservative Party conference related, and I'm on nights. That was always pretty grim because you say the winds come howling in. Yeah. I was on the Winter Garden. I was on the main entrance exit for the Winter Gardens, and it was the night of the Young Conservatives Ball. So the sons and daughters of the Shires were assembled in all the very finest finery. And it got to the end of it, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and they start trooping out in bad shape generally to get themselves sorted. And my eye's drawn to a young lady who's coming down the steps at the Winter Garden.
Sounds like a stairman, this, doesn't it?
It does.
I observed a young lady descending the stairs in a southerly direction.
And she was clearly limping and a bit uncomfortable. I now know, new shoes and that sort of thing, and people get new shoes and they rub a little bit, and so looking to be a bit sympathetic and, engaging with the public. "You all right, new shoes?" I say. "No," she says. "It's a club foot. I've had it since birth."
Oh dear.
And it was one of those ground open up beneath me moments. So she stomped off into the night, but that was, don't engage with people at party conference anymore. Right. Absolutely. Don't try and be nice. Don't try and be charming. Just leave it alone.
Well, I remember a few stories from conference, obviously, because I was based at Blackpool and I was also the town centre community beat manager, which I used to love when conference was in town because my crime rate just fell through the floor. It was brilliant. But I do remember one story, and it just goes to show how folklore and rumours happen in the police. I was on the goods entrance to the Winter Gardens, and periodically the bomb disposal van would come round and do an electronic sweep, park up and be there for about 5 or 10 minutes. Nobody knows what's inside the van. It's all very, very secretive. But I still had to check passes. So the van comes in, like a 7.5-ton lorry. So I checked the passes and I said I need to check the guy in the back. I went round to the back and opened the door, at which point the captain had got out of the cab and slammed the door shut. He said, you can't look in there. I went, right, okay, well, I need to see the guy's pass. So he goes inside the van and comes back out with this pass. I said, well, that's great, but now I need to see the bloke whose pass it belongs to make sure it's the same guy.
How officious. No wonder he went on traffic.
Yeah. So anyway, by this time, the army were getting a bit peeved with me. So anyway, this guy comes out, shows his face, and then disappears back inside. I thought nothing of it. And then I get a call from the inspector of operations. "Dave, I need you to come and see me. The army have made a complaint." I explained what had happened. And he goes, "Oh, well, that's a bit different from what I've been told." I went, well, what have you been told, sir? He said, "Well, I was told that you attempted to get in the van and they drew the firearm and had you sprayed out on the floor with a gun to your head." No, that's not what happened.
No, you might have heard about that from me if that happened, yeah.
So there you go. It just goes to show how rumours and folklore do grow within the police.
Well, they do. Stuff attached itself to you.
Talking about celebrities, I remember, was it Tony Robinson from Time Team? I was doing a perimeter cordon one day. I think it was at the Imperial Hotel, actually. He pulled up and, "Excuse me, officer, I'm looking for somewhere to park." Which, if you know, in conference season, there is nowhere to park. My stepdad at the time was a massive fan of Time Team. And I was just about to ask him for his autograph. And this woman runs up saying, Officer, there's a guy having a heart attack over there." So I look round and there's this guy spread out on the floor. And sure enough, he was actually having a heart attack. I said, "I've got to go. I've got to deal with something." And I ran off. He drove off, never to see him again, never got the autograph. But thankfully, the guy did survive, so that was a happy ending.
I was
to
the
that
guy
story.
with the heart attack. I mean, forget Tony Robinson.
Yeah.
There's another one at the Winter Garden. I suppose everyone's got a bucket full of conference ones, and I think I might have said this on the introduction podcast that we did. Armed security around a place like the Winter Gardens was quite visible. It had to be visible because the visibility is part of the deterrent. And it's quite unusual to see armed firearms officers with the bigger weapon, with the carbine.
And this was the time before over-arming of police, wasn't it?
Yeah,
so it really
So
was an eye-opener to
So
see.
I think I was a PC at the time, so it was pre-2007. And this old lady stops us at the, on Coronation Street, aghast that, that we've advanced forward past Dixon of Dock Green here and we're swinging our truncheons and stuff like that. And her comment was, well, why are you carrying a gun round? Well, it's all part of the security, you know, like you said, Richard, engaging with the community. Yeah, but you don't carry real bullets, do you, for that gun? Well, yeah, as you can see, there's real bullets here, you know what I mean? You can actually see the bullets in the G36, the rounds, and, yeah, but they're not real ones, are they? Well, yeah, because we might be called upon. Yeah, but they don't fire out that gun, do they? And then she starts on the sidearm. So you're there for 10 minutes to explain to this old lady. But then again, it shows the change all of a sudden that people see about policing, and people hark back to this Dixon of Dock Green era, don't they?
Being there as a silent observer when a senior officer slightly puts their foot in it. I'm taken back. Again, I'm early in my service. I'm a uniformed officer. And crew digging some foundations have found a body in the ground. And so the circus comes to town, and I'm on scene guard in my Doc Martens and my uniform, just making sure nobody gets there. And as happens, the detective superintendent turns up, the top detective, and there's this building site, and he's turned up in. I had one detective super who kept a pair of wellies behind the door, but this one didn't. He's perfect tooled oxblood brogues, and he's tiptoeing across the duck planks, trying not to get cement dust in his tooling. And he gets a look at the body, and then approaches him is the guy who was driving the JCB. Are you the man in charge? He says to the superintendent. Yes, I am. Could I be moving my JCB, please? No, I'm not having my scene contaminated. You can't move it. Go away. Well, suit yourself, sir, but the hydraulics are going to give out in about 20 minutes, and it's going to fall on your body anyway, is that JCB. Oh, you better move it. And it's just one of those nice moments when you just see the knowledge of the artisan, if you will, knows his machinery, knows his stuff, and just trying to be nice with the super. But
was it Leicester where they found Richard
III under a social services car park?
Yeah. That would be an interesting phone call into comms, wouldn't it? We think we found a previous king.
Yeah. Well, it was, they had to have an exhumation certificate for that one, but by the by.
I'm sure it's a common occurrence, isn't it, when footings are being dug so deep that you're going to find.
We all have worked with colleagues I think that we've got some funny stories about. I can think of one. I hope he doesn't mind me naming him. A guy called Mick Gitters, who worked at Blackpool and South Fylde, and he was on traffic, usually on his motorbike. Mick was quite well connected. I'm not saying he had blue blood, but he was very well connected. There's two stories that I know, and I hope they're true. I never got to ask him about it. First one was the Queen was visiting Blackpool, and he was one of the outriders. And I think it was the Winter Gardens again, actually. It was St John's Square, and all the dignitaries are lying there. The sheriff, the chief constable. Mick gets off his bike, takes his helmet off and stands to attention. And it wasn't the Queen, it was the Duke of Westminster who was accompanying the parade. Duke of Westminster gets out, walks past all these dignitaries and goes, "Gitters, I've not seen you for years." Transpired that I think they went to school together. But my favourite story with Mick Gitters was Blackpool Zoo. And like I say, I hope this is true. They'd lost a lion or a tiger or some big cat.
How do you lose a lion?
Well, it got out. And Mick was dispatched to the local area to try and find it. Well, of course, I think it was in the summer. It was a hot day. The windows of his car were open. You can see what's going to happen next. Couldn't find the lion or the tiger. Gets back to his car to find it on his back seat of the car asleep. So,
has this been verified?
I don't know, but it's a great story. So this cat's asleep. Any normal person would perhaps wind the windows up, if you could, and retire to a safe distance. Mick decided to get in the car and drive the lion back to the zoo.
Fabulous. This needs verification.
Yeah,
I need two independent sources.
Yeah, if anybody's listening to this that knows Mick Gitters, he's I think he's a mayor now down in Dorset, some small village.
So he drove into the zoo, back to the lion enclosure, and said,
yeah, and he was very matter of fact. Yeah,
here's Leo.
I've found the lion. I'm just taking it back
over the radio.
Yeah, radio transmissions are good. There's classic where the old Blackburn police station. There was a garage that was meant to be for the chief superintendent, the divisional commander. It was his garage and his garage alone. One night, one of the ARV lads, thinking that the superintendent wouldn't possibly be coming in on nights, parked his car in the garage, and they're usually very congested. Unfortunately for him, that divisional commander was on night's cover, so had come in from his mansion out in the suburbs of South Preston to find he was blocked and couldn't get in. So this superintendent gets on the radio, broadcast, and it's pretty sweary, basically, and it's, "Which fucking bastard has gone in my..." And then there's a bit of silence afterwards, and then just came over the radio, sorry you were broken, could you repeat the transmission? And it's just very, very nice. That was back in the days when you couldn't identify who was transmitting on the old sets. It was just nice.
I'm minded of a story. We're all aware of the original World Cup was stolen, wasn't it? And the dog Pickles became a national hero when the cup was found. I think he found it behind a wall or something. His owner was investigated by the police, actually, because at first he thought, well, has he stolen it? Transpired that he didn't, and received quite a large award. Sadly, Pickles died a year later after strangling himself on his own lead, chasing a cat up a tree. And if you're laughing now, you're going to hell, Richard.
Yeah, I'm laughing.
But there's a side story to this, and again, I hope it's true. The cup was handed into a police station. I think it was Pudsey Hill, I'm not sure. But the Knights team, they're having a pretty quiet night, there's that word again, and they decided to have a five-a-side football match. And they got the cup out of the property store, and for that night, they actually played for the World Cup. I don't know if it's true, but it's a nice story.
It's a cracking story. Sad about Pickles.
There's a folklore story I heard from Preston, and this does not involve anybody that I ever knew, and I don't condone any part of this. And if this can give as a shining example of how, if true, of how policing has changed for the better, etc., etc., etc. So hopefully that's enough of a disclaimer.
Health warnings delivered.
Back in the day, obviously before my day, Detective Dan, as you'll know, you two, a little tiny Metro or some plain, cheapy, bottom of the range.
The Danny, but in CID slang, these are known as the Danny. And it's the crappy little car you get to do local inquiries in.
Yeah. So, as everyone knows, detectives of an era gone by would like to debrief in the local hostelry of an evening, wouldn't they? And that would include people of all ranks. And it was positively encouraged to build that teamwork around these debriefing sessions in the pub. Basically, they just go and get pissed every night, wouldn't they? And there's folklore stories of people taking out loans for the CID course of like a couple of grand because they'd just go out getting drunk and getting leathered. But again, don't condone any of that, etc., etc., and it's a time gone by. So this story centres around them all going to the pub, and the junior DC is then tasked with driving all these officers and very senior detective officers around. And again, I don't know if this is true, but this is folklore. They spend a good evening in the public house. So the young detective, who's also may or may not have encouraged and developed his drinking habits, gets the task of driving all the senior officers home. So you can imagine there's 3 burly senior officers in a very small metro. So he's travelling the length and breadth of South Lancashire to drop these officers off. So he drops them all off, happy days, and unfortunately gets involved in an accident on his own on the way back. So he inspects the damage. There's some panelling issues and a light cluster's gone. I'm not saying it's written off or it's rolled or anything, but it's whacked something to the front near side or thereabouts. So he gets his mate out, who's picks up the car. Leave it with us, Bob, or whatever. Leave it with us. I'll get it sorted. I'll get it back to meet us back at the garage first thing in the morning or whenever it was, later in the afternoon. I'll get it sorted. And the meeting's arranged, and the detective goes and picks up the car, and he's like, "What have you done?" I said, "What happened?" He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "It's fine. It's look, new panel, new light cluster, new bumper, or whatever it needs." And he says, "But you've put a sunroof in it." And he goes, "Yeah, well, there was some creasing on the pillars, on the arches or whatever, and you know what I mean, I couldn't knock out, there was this massive crease somehow in the roof and stuff. I just think the only way I could get around it is putting a sunroof in." So he's like, "Why am I going to explain that all of a sudden there's a police car now with a sunroof in it?" Again, folklore, that there was this Danny at Preston which had a sunroof in it, because it was involved in a non-reported accident on late one night.
I've been that young detective, particularly it's one that bears in mind, and it was a wake as it happened. So there was a lot of serious CID brass at this do, and I was the night detective at that time with the Danny, and it was my job to take these officers back if they needed a lift back to home. But I did notice, and there's a thing in police, the ongoing war between CID and traffic. And there's nothing a gutter likes more than the opportunity of bagging a detective. You see, it's true. But as I'm driving around, I couldn't help but notice that on every major approach road to and from this particular pub There's a traffic car parked up in a side road just waiting. And woe betide the detective who decided to chance their arm and chance the job. But certainly traffic were out in force for that do, because it was a well-publicised do. And it's a real thing in policing. I don't know if it still is, but the war between traffic and CID was a real thing back then.
I like to think that the working relationship between traffic and CID now is vastly improved to...
you used to be Blackpool's traffic, didn't you?
Yes.
Well, I remember when I was at Lear, because Lear's right on the A583 at the border with Blackpool. Anybody who was going home from Lear, going towards Blackpool way, there'd always be traffic stood at Lear Gate or on the A585 waiting and stopping all these young bucks, all these young cops, early 20s in the souped-up courses, trying to get home at 2 o'clock in the morning.
I don't
Any
know.
comment, Dave?
I don't know anything about that.
I knew I knew your face from somewhere.
But I mean, I know stories where you're going back to damaged police vehicles. I've known of police cars being put in the bay ready for earlies and the paint's still wet.
Yeah.
You know of this?
I remember a time I was out. He's retired now, retired DI, but back in the day, we were 2 PCs in the van in Lilham St Anne's near Fairhaven Lake, and we did a trawl of the lake. It's a small path. You can't. It is a vehicle width, but the sand sometimes blows across the path. Anyway, long story short, we got this van stuck, didn't we? So I got hold of one of the lads at Lytham, Nick. It was about 2 in the morning. I said, go back to the station, get the shovel, do not say a word to anybody. Right. So 10 minutes later, the whole of the section is coming down the road with the blue lights on. No sirens, but just the blue lights. There must have been about 7 cars. I'm thinking, oh my God. So we get the shovel. I said, I thought I told you not to tell anybody. He said, well, I couldn't help it. They were all in on refs, and I got the shovel and I came out and they're going, why have you got that shovel? And
knowing exactly why they've got the shovel.
I had to tell them. I couldn't help it. So, yeah, that was an embarrassing moment. And the guy I was with he'll be chuckling at that if he's listening to this.
Another one. I'll tell you the one I've got. And it goes back to, obviously, the nervousness you feel sometimes when you're a very brand new officer out the box. You're dead keen, aren't you? You've been told how professional people are when you're at Bruges. And obviously, the Bruges scenario, which I think is the fantastic foundation to policing, and we should have these training centres back.
Yeah.
More and more.
Good fun as well.
You're in your early 20s. Well, I was. You're in your early 20s, and you got a very professional job. You're with a group close. You get some close knit friends, don't you? From times like that. So it's a great bit of bonding experience for cops. Near to Bruges at Warrington, there was a couple of pubs, but there was a nightclub, and I think all the locals knew that it was the police trainees that would go there and stuff. Well, there was no trouble. There was no issues and stuff like that. So, some young, not me, but some young officers would entertain the local ladies of the area sometimes and stuff. But the thing is, with Bruges, you had a 12 o'clock curfew. You go back and you try and get back on time. But this one time, there was like 2 or 3 of us who got back, and it was like 1:45. So it gets to 1:45, right, what are we going to do? So we're like, hatching a plan, right, okay, is our career going to flash before us now? We're only late back. For us at that time, you join the police and you've been told you've got to keep your nose clean and stuff. This is a big deal. So we're quite, not panicked, but we're like a little bit like, I know we've had a few drinks, but let's think about this. We said, right, we can either stay out and come in the morning with the people who went home in our dancing gear, walking past the gate, trying to nonchalantly bluff it, or we make a run for it. So in the end, after a bit of to and fro, we decided to make a run for it. But there was kind of big long road up to the gate. So we hid in the garden about 2 or 3 houses down, and then we just went for it. But you're running, trying to look away from the gatehouse. So we run and we get through. We didn't even look. We didn't even know if anyone was there. As you get into Bruges, there's like a little grassed area to the left. So because we're running a little bit, trying to get out of the way, one of them, I won't name the people I was with, slips on the grass, on his back, skids right along, because he's trying to get a fair rate of knots up on the old running, skids on his back, and he's like floundering on the back. And it was like, is it one for all for one? Do we stop? Do we go back for our fallen brother and all the rest of it? No, we didn't. We just carried on. So we were like thinking, oh my God, he's been captured. It's like he's been captured by the enemy or something. It comes in about 15 minutes later, top to toe, mud. Right, okay, did we get away with it? So we're thinking the next morning, like, nothing's ever mentioned. Nothing's ever said. We'd obviously blown this thing out of all proportion, and we were probably no one in the gatehouse when we went legging it past, but it was just one of those times where you just think, oh my career's flashing before my eyes.
Bruges was great. When I went back for my second spell at Bruges, I used to do 2 spells at Bruges. We had 2 very creative training sergeants, and when it came to deception offences on the curriculum, they decided that we as a class would go out and commit deception offences on Bruges.
Oh, right, okay. I thought you meant into Warrington.
No, just yeah. Well, they were creative, and we were just like, yeah, we're up for this. We'll go for it. And it started off with borrowing things, allegedly for like an educational video. And there were 2 older members of the intake. There was me, I was 28. There's another guy who was in his 30s. What we borrowed was a set of superintendent's crowns off the commander, and we borrowed a set of sergeant stripes off one of our instructors. We came in for our 5 weeks, the second 5 weeks, and there was a new class coming in to start their 10 weeks, so nobody knew who anybody was. And at Bruges, you're meant to turn up 10 minutes early for the class before your trainers arrive, and that's like... So we knew that there'd be a new class stood there that didn't know anybody, so we put the epaulets for the superintendent on the 35-year-old, and I got the sergeant's epaulets on. And we walked down to their classroom. As soon as we walked in, they were all straight up, bolt upright, hands by the side, full number 1 attention. Superintendent imposter carried out his job brilliantly. He was, right, it's a pocketbook inspection.
They're coming for you.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. It's a pocketbook inspection.
I'm thinking, this is a police act offence, this, isn't
it? Just getting there. If you'd hand all your pocketbooks to the sergeant. So I went round with a cap and collected the pocketbooks from this entire class. And then we gave them back after a day.
After a day?
Yes. The training sergeants came in, and we've had the camp commandant in, and they've collected all our pocketbooks, and there was this sergeant with
him. The trainer sergeant must be thinking, what the hell's going on here?
This doesn't happen. Quick call to the commandant's office. Oh, somebody borrowed your epaulets, did they? Right.
Ah, yes.
Yes. That was the flaw in our cunning plan, obviously. We'd left some trails behind us, but that happened.
And was there any amendments made on certain pages of these pocketbooks?
No.
Page 69 or anything?
I know.
No?
Traditionally, page 69, you draw the usual obvious cock and balls basically on it, but we didn't. No, that would have been too far.
Well, last week we talked about pace, didn't we, and identification issues, and there was a big brawl on Queen Street in Blackpool. It was a stag party. I think I was on traffic. But I heard get the shout.
You were always on traffic, were you?
Yeah, well...
you were born with a white hat on.
Yes, indeed. Even the CID sat there with the white hat.
So there was a report of a fight, 10 males fighting, all dressed as cartoon characters. And we're getting updates on the fact, Superman's just been snotted by Big Bird. and so it went on. And we got to scene, and making arrests wasn't difficult because the ID was there.
But if we went on a superhero night out, who went as Big Bird? If you got Batman, Superman there.
Yeah.
It's Blackpool.
He was.
Sorry.
The last one to the costume shop, presumably.
Yeah. And obviously tall enough.
Yeah, we're fresh out of Batman's. We've got this Big Bird.
The Thin Blue Mind with Bradshaw, Horton and Thomas. Policing insights and opinion. Well, that's it for this week. Thank you for joining us. This podcast is in partnership with Policing TV, the leading policing media channel. So until the next time, on the next podcast, take care.